Hello, and welcome to the Higher Enlightenment Podcast, brought to you by Higher Yields Cannabis Consulting, your seed to sale business solutions team. My name is Adam, part of the creative team here at Higher Yields, and today's episode, number 49, is about energy efficiency for controlled environment horticulture. Our special guests today include Ryan Doyle of Agxano, Dan Collins of Camaraderie, and our very own Cory Waggoner of Higher Yields Consulting. So let's get on with the show. Let's get started by having you guys introduce yourselves. How about you, Ryan? Could you tell us a little bit about what you do and where you're from?
Yeah, Adam, thank you. I'm down in Orange County, California. My name is Ryan Doyle. I'm the Vice President of Product at Agxano. My background is in finance and computer science. I started out at an investment bank on a physical oil desk at Morgan Stanley, and I've spent the rest of my career after leaving that building technology products around connecting wireless devices, sensors, and building software that takes the data from the edge and makes it easy for people to use it and make informed decisions on it. And that's at its core what we're doing at Agxano for commercial horticulture. We've got a special place in our heart for cannabis and the cultivation of it, which is a beautiful plant and a very right target for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and just empirical science.
Well, thanks for being here. How about
Absolutely.
you, Daniel? Could you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Adam. I'm Daniel Cravero, the Director of Research and Development at the Camaraderie Group. We're dedicated to offering comprehensive solutions to the industry. We specialize at our company in providing technology-based options that streamline and enhance efficiency and quality output in operations. One of our flagship offerings is the Dagda fertigation system, which automates every step of the irrigation process from fertilizer mixing, delivery to the plants, all while utilizing sensor-based monitoring. In addition to our solutions, we also offer consulting services that cover a wide range of areas in production and manufacturing. We draw on our expertise gained through our sister operations and licensed facilities, and we're well equipped to provide guidance on virtually every aspect of cultivation and manufacturing in the industry. What sets us apart is our commitment to real testing and validation. We develop our technologies and services in operational facilities. That really allows us to assess their effectiveness before delivering them to our clients, and the approach ensures that we provide reliable and proven solutions that are really tailored to the specific needs of the industry. So thanks for having me here today, and I'm excited to share more about our work and insights in the field.
Well, thanks for being here. How about you, Cory? Could you introduce yourself?
Cory Waggoner, CEO of Higher Yields Consulting. I do a little bit of everything here at Higher Yields. Currently, I'm really working on developing out our partnerships with some of our close equipment manufacturers and some of our training management teams, like Daniel and Ryan here. So really excited to dive into the topics today and get their insight on some of this.
Well, thanks for
Or
being
you got
here.
any big news in your personal life you'd want to share?
Well, we're announcing that on the next one, the 50th episode.
All right. Build some suspense for it.
There you
Exactly.
go.
Okay. The first question, we talked about this a bit in episode 48, specific to lighting efficiency, but I want to expand on the conversation to all the factors that affect a grow. Talk to us about California Title 24. What is it exactly, and how is it impacting cannabis cultivations?
Yeah, I mean, you can think of it as the energy efficiency constitution of California. I think 1974 is when they kind of kicked off I forget what the first thing was called, like the standards. Since then, really California has been the pioneer in pursuing those standards. They've got some of the strictest regulations and controls, some of the most forward-looking in terms of not just reducing lighting, but building HVAC, insulation. There's a lot of really intelligent people working on that group and committee. And it's cannabis cultivation is a lot large part of the energy use in the U.S. I think it's like a little over 1%. And so, focusing on that, is important. And Title 24 expands beyond that and goes into, building, lighting, automation, and really, really all of that focus around.
Okay. So what are all the factors in a cultivation operation that affect energy efficiency? I'm sure there are obvious ones like lighting and HVAC, but there are also some not so obvious ones. What are they?
Yeah, so I could speak to that one from the operator's perspective. Traditionally, lighting and HVAC have been the largest power consumers on the grid in these operations. There are factors, beyond just the actual equipment that the growers need to consider. These include things like timing. So, for example, different utility companies have different timing schedules for utility usage and rates. Some utilities charge the exact same rate no matter what time you run your lights. Some utilities charge more at peak hours or peak rates. And so, you can leverage that information to really make sort of energy efficiency gains, or not necessarily energy efficiency, but cost efficiency gains. If you're aware of those parameters and can work around them. So, you can talk about the obvious, like lighting load reductions by conversions to LED, which I'm sure we'll get into. You can talk about the efficiencies gained in HVAC by doing so and some of the changes that are involved, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But then, yeah, we're talking about the lesser knowns, like the timing aspects, getting the buy-in of all of your employees to have good energy practices, whether it's, turning off pieces of equipment that aren't in use, or selecting to use those pieces of equipment at off-peak hours, things like that. Those can sort of add some supplemental gains that can, obviously save some energy in dollars without necessarily requiring you to change your complete operations, turn things over.
Yeah, and I think what Daniel hit on is just like control. What kind of control goes on top of that? And then, what kind of intelligence can you build into that? Using intelligent systems to go in and figure that kind of stuff out. You have this inherent tension between growers and utility providers, because utility providers have a certain amount of energy that they can give it a certain amount of time. Growers want to use what's best for their plants. And so you have topics come up like demand response. Can the utility stop powering something because they need to power other things? And so there's some really intelligent ways guys like Daniel are tackling this very intelligently. It's things that we're tackling at Agxano. So, how do you get the most out of plants and do it just in a controlled, intelligent way that is going to benefit the growers and give the utility company comfort knowing that's being done in an orderly manner? Because ultimately, if they're killing the plants, it doesn't help anyone either. So it's really just smoothing out that tension and making sure all the cards are on the table, so everyone understands what everyone's doing and all the interests get aligned. And that's ultimately what Title 24 is trying to do.
Okay, so what does that mean for the cultivation operation? Will growers have to change in terms of equipment and processes, et cetera?
Yeah, and it's basically good technology is going to get brought to the market because you have programs that will subsidize some of it, and you'll have programs that'll mandate some of it. So really, the important thing is that regulation is done intelligently, and that's supporting those technologies that are increasing yields, increasing plant health, and as little as possible gamifying the system, so you have people that aren't optimizing for something that doesn't provide any value. So really, it's going to bring new technology to the market. The state of California specifically, when we're talking about Title 24, I mean, one of the biggest economies in the world, some of the most innovative companies in the world. And yeah, for sure, we can talk a lot about the things they get wrong. But ultimately, when done right, you're going to bring better technology to the market and you're going to grow better plants.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from from the operator's perspective, there's sort of two big buckets that people end up falling into. They either are proactive in these energy efficient conversations and measures, or they're reactive. And being proactive means that you're looking at the advantages that you can gain from transitioning to those technologies. So I'll use a very direct and simple one: LED lighting, right? Of course, LED lighting is advantageous, and we've recognized that for years now. And those who see that up front are generally making that transition to LEDs sooner than those who have a more reactive perspective, and they have their HPS lights and they're basically waiting either until they go out and they need to replace them, at which point they'll get LEDs, or they're waiting until it's so costly to run the HPS that it makes no more sense, which we're probably there in most or all circumstances at this point. And so, depending on what bucket you're in, if you're a proactive industry member, you're in conversations with your local utility, you're seeking rebates to help pay for this lighting. You're doing all these things to not only, of course, reduce energy consumption, but improve the health of your crop, get more output, get better environments for your employees to work in, all of these things that come as advantages to that transition to LEDs. If you're in the reactive bucket, you're basically leaving a lot of these things on the table, and really the rest of the industry ends up sort of gaining an edge before you convert. So it used to be that the conversion to LEDs was a very daunting thing for operators. It was a very costly thing, but at this point, the benefits are so significant that you really need to take advantage of it as soon as you can. So I think, going back to where I started, that passive, reactive approach versus the proactive approach really kind of sets these two big groups of operators apart. And I'd rather be on the proactive side.
Okay, when we talk about energy efficiency, it often seems like a costly and overwhelming undertaking. Where should people start?
I think an energy audit is generally the most traditional way to start this process, no matter what business you're in. Generally what you would do is seek the involvement or the input from either your local utility or a company that your utility works with that does energy audits and consulting. In our state of Colorado, a lot of us are serviced by Xcel Energy, and Xcel Energy has a program called the Strategic Energy Management Program. And industry operators can join the program at no cost, and they provide services, including an energy audit, which can really give you the lay of the land of what's going on at your facility. Where is your energy usage coming from? Where is it, making an impact? Where can it be modified? Where can it be improved upon? And that really just kind of exposes operators to the inner workings of their utilities. That point, now you've got the foundation to really, move forward and say, okay, what's the low-hanging fruit here? What uses the most energy, but we can have the most impact on? Where do we focus our attention, our resources, our capital, and, just run with that. So energy audit.
Okay. What are some of the penalties, both directly from state regulators and indirectly in terms of the costs to the business of not making energy efficient changes?
Yeah, I think it's so many of these business decisions are get challenged. I think one thing that gets overlooked is the strain that gets put on operators, not having access to capital like an ordinary business would, not being allowed to be part of the ordinary banking system. I think you're having a lot of friction in the market. And I'm sure the guys at Higher Yield see this. You see a lot of really intelligent people that want to make really intelligent decisions that are just handcuffed because they don't own outright their $10 million facility that they can get a hard money loan at 12% on, so they can have access to no capital. So it makes it hard to give proactors, when Daniel's talking about them being proactive, I'm sure you can relate to this too. It's hard to kind of put that onus on them when realistically they don't have that CapEx a lot of the times to go do. So, identifying that low hanging fruit, and really supporting them from a regulation standpoint is what needs to happen. Because a lot of times you'll have these people that'll get hundreds of thousands of dollars of penalties, and as encouraged as I am by a lot of the Title 24 regulations, of bringing in energy efficient lighting specifically, it's obviously something that benefits Agxano. But the realistic part is the reason why they are doing ones and twosies, putting up a 1-for-1 replacement of LED in the place of high pressure sodium. It's because like getting access to that capital is expensive. It's not the same for the the ZERP people of the world. So I think there are severe penalties. I mean, there's the like explicit like fines, and there's plenty of examples of those nationwide. And then there's the implicit costs of not really able to truly compete, of the savvy small owners that want to go compete, and the really well-funded guys with access to capital that are kind of coming through different markets are able to invest in that technology and outcompete, because they're having the technology to get more out of their operations, to invest in their operations, to invest in their people. So there's explicit penalties, plenty of those, and then there's the implicit cost of not doing it. But I think it's like a tough thing to hold against someone when it's just not as easy as going to Bank of America and asking for a loan.
Well, I think too, it's you have to the mistake that we see oftentimes is when people are designing a facility, they're trying to design it to a footprint. And so they're cutting costs, they're cutting corners along the way to use less efficient, worse, not great equipment, or they're kind of taking away from specific areas in order to be able to achieve this footprint, versus just building a very efficient, smaller footprint. And I think like that thinking or way of thinking has to change, because people, when we design these facilities, a lot of times, and the technology is changing so fast, like you can't get too far behind, because these facilities take a long time to build anyway. So by the time you do get your capital, by the time you do get your plans, by the time you do get all the equipment, all the lead times, and all the regulatory and the licensing and all those things that happen, you're 18 months down the road. And there's a new light, there's a new fertigation system, there's a new way, there's a new better way. So I think like people continuing to have a longer vision of these facilities, and these are huge, extremely expensive facilities to build, but people have like a 3-4 year mentality in their head, when in actuality they should be building this facility to last them for 10 years, assuming maybe upgrades and things like that coming over 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But overall, they need to have a longer vision, a bigger picture in their head, a longer road to get to where they want to. And I think that like kind of short-sightedness is something we still see in the front end of things, as well as that, more is better. And that's not always the case, especially with, what Ryan and his team are seeing in California, and what we're seeing with Title 24 is it's coming. Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we started seeing light density requirements in Massachusetts and Illinois. Before that, those didn't exist. So we're seeing this kind of next level of government oversight requirements. Obviously, that 1% number that Ryan mentioned, that's huge. That's huge. And if we can put a dent in that, that's going to make a big difference.
And that's something, Cory, you and I connected so early on, at Agxano, that, it's giving growers that ability is a lot easier with our technology, because we've got hardware that we over there update software with. So when we release, new AI features for adaptive greenhouse controls, yes, that gets pushed automatically. And what you guys do, and why we feel so comfortable with higher yields and bringing our customers over there, is because you do that from an engineering standpoint, and a building standpoint, and a CRM standpoint, and a point of sale standpoint of understanding, what are you going to be able to do with this footprint? What does that look like? 10 years out, what are those technologies? Because it's unreasonable to think that someone's going to be able to keep up with this all themselves. Like you're not going to be that plugged in, and your guys' team having that, pushing software is one thing, but all the components that you guys are doing it in a non-intuitive way is really cool. So I'm really glad you said that.
Okay, what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people making when trying to make their operations more energy efficient? We already covered that a little bit, but can you expand on it?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. So, I think running off of that energy audit and identifying the areas that you really should focus on, if you don't do that, that can be a big mistake because you end up chasing, I guess, high hanging fruit, which is oftentimes difficult to catch and not ripe anyway. And so, what ends up happening when you don't do things like an energy audit is you find things that you think might consume significant amounts of energy, or might be practices that you can change that will save significant amounts of energy. But maybe down the road, after investing a lot of resources into those, you realize that there's other things you could have done that could have saved you a lot more money or energy for a lot less resources and effort. And so, I think it's really the biggest mistake in my mind is not getting the big perspective of what's going on first before you start making decisions and making changes. And I think that's where a group like Higher Yields comes in really effectively. They are sort of a removed perspective on an operation, right? So they can come in and take a completely fresh view at something and really look at it from that perspective. A lot of times when you're in the operation and you're living it and breathing it, you sort of put your blinders up, right? And you end up making assumptions that you kind of run off of. And so having a group like Higher Yields come in, take a look at what's going on and provide that perspective, I think is fundamental. And some of that can come in the way of, energy audit related questions and topics that can inform operators on what good decisions to make.
One area we see that we've actually been looking into a lot more, that is extremely expensive, and Ryan hit on it. Finding capital in this industry is difficult, but when you're trying to think in terms of 5-10 years down the road, solar in some states is actually a really good option. Some states have like really great credits, tax credits, net metering, like for the amount of money that you sell the power back to the state, for the amount of money that it actually costs you over time. I'm sure if you just peeked at Daniel's footprint and his power bill, you'd say, wow, I should absolutely at least look at solar. And they are very large systems. They are very expensive systems, but over the course of 6, 7, 8 years, you can actually pay those systems off. California is one really great place. Colorado is another one. New Mexico has some really great incentives. Nevada. So I think that's one area that people they get a little bit sticker shocked of the price. But when you think about it in the longer picture and the longer road, it makes a lot of sense to at least explore those options.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll chime in with one more little thing because I think it's pretty important in this topic. A big mistake can be not seeking incentives and rebates that are available to you when making some of these changes. A lot of people don't realize that they can have their equipment paid for, or a majority of it paid for in some instances by the local utilities, because the local utilities want to incentivize the switch to happen. So to give an example, right now in the state of Colorado, if you're an Xcel Energy utility customer, you can get essentially approximately 75% or close to 75% of the cost of an the cost of an LED fixture paid for by the utility if you make that upgrade from HPS to LED. So again, the local utility is willing to pay for about 75% of the cost of an LED light right now for an operator in the state of Colorado. So that's significant. And if you're looking to make that change and you don't know that, you're leaving money on the table, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, depending on the size and expanse of your facility. So
yeah, and there's people that'll do it for you. Like we have consultants that will handle all of that for you. So it's a really good point, Daniel. Like it's not sexy. Invest in your people and invest in your equipment. It is the lowest hanging fruit. Like if you have the best systems and your people aren't using them right because they haven't gotten, the proper regular training on your procedures, your operations, how the system works, that is running on the schedule that it's supposed to. The reality is, like, a grow is never going to be fully automated. You're going to have people in the mix, and when you go into the best grows, they have the best people flat out every time. And they take care of the machinery that they own. They get the regular maintenance, and they're making sure that, those that HVAC system that they got that gets them that 50% reduction in energy usage is maintained, so that it's still getting that it's not reverting back. So I mean, it's common sense business stuff, but there's invest in the stuff that you have, your people, your equipment.
Yeah, I think people right now need to, again, zoom out and realize that we're in the beginning of this industry. We are creating workforces that have not existed, right? We're creating positions that haven't existed. And we have the opportunity as, the founders of this industry, in a sense, to create those positions to where they can respect the employee and cultivate a sense of involvement and inclusion and acceptance and respect. I think a lot of industries out there that have been around for a long time, the workers, you can almost stereotype them as being disadvantaged because it's just the way it's been. And it's really hard to change that for those industries, right? But we're at the beginning of ours, and we have an opportunity to set the standard for what it is to be an employee of this industry. And I think it goes to exactly what you're saying, Brian, that you need to respect your employees because they're going to make or break your business. Very important.
Yeah, I think that's true of any business, really. What other, I know we covered this a little bit, but what other tips do you guys have for cannabis businesses that want to future-proof their operations, especially as more and more states are making changes?
Yeah, so I didn't go to the sexy one last time. I'll go with the sexy one this one. Embrace digital transformation. It's nice at Agxano. We've been the old man yelling at the AI cloud for the last 3 years. That's like where we've been investing in, and now it's the talk of the town, and it's great. And the reality is, like, technology like this, like, isn't just hype. Sure, like, a lot of it's like maybe overblown, but there is a real competitive advantage into looking at forward-looking technologies that's going to help your grow. There's kind of a common refrain like AI is going to take everyone's jobs. Not true. People using AI are going to take people's jobs. People using AI, people using, the forward-looking building techniques that Cory's looking at, the stuff that Daniel and those guys are doing. It's those are the growers that are going to take market share. So just, like, embrace it, look at it as something fun to learn. No, you're not going to be an expert, but, connect in the community and, really just embrace the cannabis growing community. There's a lot of people doing a lot of really cool stuff, and everyone likes to talk and share about what they're doing and what they're working on. Yes, there is some secrecy and some of that, but, from what we've found is the growers that are really pursuing just pushing the industry forward want to share and want to work together. So just jump in and start growing better plants.
Yeah, I'll second what Cory had also said earlier, which is really just think of the consequences. When you make a decision in your facility to change your operations, change your equipment, change your footprint, change your layout, think of the consequences. And it sounds simple, but sometimes it's difficult to do when you've got those blinders on as an operator. So you really need to think about, what's the technology going to look like in 6 months, 6 years, and how can I be ready for that change? Are these companies I'm working with going to be around, right? There are a lot of startup companies in this industry, and we need to understand that The ones that are going to be around are the ones that have solid foundations, that stand behind their product, that not only sell you the product, but support it and make it do what they tell you it's going to do. So I think just really thinking of the consequences, like Cory had mentioned, is pretty vital to prevent people from making major mistakes.
And I'll just add, a couple words that keep getting thrown around: data, controls, and efficiency. Everybody wants these things, everybody sees value in them, but they're things that have to be achieved. Data, you can get a very limited picture from, metric or your POS system, but you still find yourself asking why. Whereas when you understand all the inputs and what's important and how you bring that data together to create informed decisions, it obviously informs the staff more. But as Ryan was kind of talking, there's machine learning out there that's continuing to capture this information, that if you're not capturing data, you're certainly not doing anything machine learning wise. As far as controls, having those controls in place, having a proven system is huge, and having that from day one. I mean, if you want to walk into a kitchen and try to figure out how to bake a cake without a baker, good luck, right? You're going to mess it up so many times until you finally get it right, versus working with somebody who has a proven system, not just environmentally and equipment wise, but also procedurally, that operates with those efficiencies. And then getting to that efficiency, because once you have that data, once you have those controls, now you can really test things out and determine how do you get better. And maybe Ryan has an idea and Daniel has an idea. We run A test, B test, and that outcome, maybe it saves us a penny a gram, maybe it saves us $1 a gram. We don't know, but we can't have good outcomes without those controls in place and without proper testing going on. So again, working with a proven system, working with experienced individuals, as Daniel mentioned, taking care of your staff, taking care of the good people. Don't allow the hard workers to take on all of the work, and then allow the slackers to continue to slack, because that it creates resentment and eventually results in turnover. So having those things in place, I mean, those are the biggest pro tips that you can take from this. This isn't something that you want to take on by yourself. This isn't something that is easy to do. And there are certainly people out there, like the group of partners here, that have that experience and have learned those hard lessons, and can help really expedite and raise the bar and the standards for the industry in these types of facilities.
Yeah, and a really less obvious point of the data conversation that you bring up, Cory, which that we can all relate to, but there is no Apple ecosystem in horticulture, meaning you can't buy a system that connects your Apple Watch to your Apple phone to your MacBook Pro, that syncs to your iCloud, that then third-party developers can leverage to build off of, to then turn off your light switch and set the dimming and turn on your pool at 6 o'clock when whatever. That doesn't exist, right? You have this fractured thing. So there's the component of finding the right tools that are future-proofed and all that, right? That due diligence. But then how well do those things play with others? How willing are those companies willing to play with others? And what do they have built to support that? So it's understanding what data is being captured, but then how easy is it for me to leverage all of that? Because as much as all of us think we're tackling important things, the sum is or the pieces, the sum is greater than the pieces, or whatever the phrase is. There is more to be had by making sure that you're able to communicate with everything. And it's unreasonable to think that you're going to hire your own team of developers to connect all the systems, but making sure you're working with people that will help with that are at least being conscious of the realities of that, and asking those questions of, okay, who owns my data? Who gets to see my data? How are you making money off my data? We've kind of learned that with the Facebooks and all of that, and the trade secrets are important. So understanding your rights to that, their rights to that, and how you can leverage that across your facility. It's just not obvious, and very important.
Okay, we're just about at the end. Do you have any final thoughts, or would you like to give yourselves a plug?
Yeah, Agxano.com. If you want high quality lights, high quality sensors, if you have an interest in seeing how artificial intelligence can help you grow better plants, we're always happy to have a conversation.
I wanted to thank the Higher Yields team and Ryan and everybody for having me on the podcast. Our website for Camaraderie is camaraderiegroup.com, and our fertigation systems are at dagdaai.com. So check those out. And yeah, you can consult our services through the Higher Yields team. Hopefully this was informative, and really appreciate getting to spend the time with you guys learning about what you do.
Well, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Good stuff.
All right, take care, guys.
Very informative.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Hope somebody
Thanks, everybody.
push record.